All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts.
Right here, if you have a beard, random men are going to always walk up to you and try to lick your beard.
Ew, that's so disgusting. Oh.
You're one of Mitten's kittens.
Hold on. Oh, so I'm like, nope. Oh, well, you lost all your fleets.
Oh, fuck. Not what we intended. Oh, God. What do we do?
The Meta Show.
With that out of the way, let's go ahead and go back to the questions we were asking. I think that we were cut off right when we were asking about the number of systems that have been reinforced since the patch day.
Okay, yes. This was very much like my last Wednesday, by the way, when servers go down.
That's right, and everything
it was all good fun.
for
Yeah, we can talk about that a bit later on, maybe. But
I'm curious about that, yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about how many systems have been seen some action. And I don't know if people heard this or not the first time around, but there were 415 solar systems that have had some kind of reinforcement event in them. And a total of 982 events. So most systems have seen a couple of events in them. We also have, I can give you some regions as well. Like all of this data is the same kind of data you could get from the API via .lan and so on. So I'm kind of happy to give it out. It's just, saving convenience, I guess. So there's no kind of OPSEC in this kind of stuff. Like 415 systems. The most common region is going to be Scalding Pass, and then Catch, and then Wicked Creek in the top 3.
Interesting. And do you think, is there a correlation between those regions being the most active and them having the lowest ADMs on average, or?
Yes, with probably 90% of the events that we're seeing are in systems with an ADM of 1, 2, or 3.
Okay. Now, of those systems that have had events take place in them, how many of them have actually been taken or changed hands?
Okay, let me see. So on average, we're seeing defenders winning 65% of the time.
Oh, that's as high as I thought it was going to be. I was expecting like an 85%-ish win rate.
But that's across all of the ADMs. When you sort of move to the higher ADM, it drastically shifts in favour of defender.
Gotcha.
But most of these are kind of 1 to 2 time defend multipliers.
So this sort of leads into kind of a strategic question, which is, are you, as CCP, keeping track of what kinds of ships are being used for hacking or intosising? We usually say hacking because it just rolls off the tongue better than
it's an easier verb to...
Right. So, I mean, I'll call it FozzieSov, but I'm not going to call it intosising. So are you keeping track of what types of ships are doing the hacking?
Yeah. I mean, we have... for every kind of module, whatever it is that you're using, we have where you're doing it, what ship you're in, what item you're doing it to, so we can kind of run those numbers fairly easily. So yes, we do have metrics of kind of entosis link activations by ship type, ship group.
So would you be willing to reveal what the most common ones are?
You can probably predict half of the top 10.
Well, we have our guesses, but I wanted to see whether there was data. I mean, anecdotally, of course, we think it's been interceptors and stealth bombers is the dominant meta for that, and I'm wondering, if you guys are tracking that, and do you have any opinions about whether that's good or bad?
So yes, we're tracking it, and I mean, I can see, that those interceptors are very popular. But we've also got frigates, cruisers, T3 destroyers. Anything unusual in this list? No, really, just the kind of the usual suspects by population, if you like, distribution of ship classes. Mm-hmm. Interceptors are heavily, well, not heavily, but they are overrepresented, I would say, in this group.
When we're saying overrepresented, what does that mean?
As in relative to their population.
I'm aware of what the word means.
That's what I'm
In terms of the data, are we talking
when you
about
bring out dictionary.com again.
20% for interceptors, 40% are interceptors? Like, how much more interceptor action are we having vis-a-vis everything else?
I'm not going to go into numbers, but it's not a huge amount more. They're in the top if you just order it by quantity, but it's not like orders of magnitude more.
Is it so? Would you say it's within reason? Like you think it's an acceptable amount above the rest of the classes?
I think for the kind of the current design, it's okay. Whether we want to decide we want to stay with that, we want to kind of nudge it one way or the other by making changes. There was a deliberate intention to try and keep the kind of the meta forcing as light as possible.
Okay.
And obviously interceptors have just naturally risen popular because they are well suited to the role.
Well,
not because we've made other ships less suitable deliberately.
Okay. Well, I mean, with that being said, and talking about control sectors and different parts of the Age of Sov, what are your thoughts on the new Sov system within this so far since the release last Tuesday?
Okay, so from our point of view, it's kind of overall as game dev, there's two sort of sides that we look for when we put out a big new feature like this. The first thing is is it mechanically working? So are nodes spawning? Are structures invulnerable when they're supposed to be invulnerable? Are builds working? That kind of thing. On that front, I'm as a programmer, I'm really happy with everything that's gone out because we've had expansions go out in the past, and it's been weeks and weeks of firefighting and nothing working and everything else. From that point of view, this has gone relatively unnoticed. We've not seen a big uptick in defect counts, apart from last Wednesday, or Wednesday before last, when we had some issues. The servers have been nice and stable. So from that side of things, we're really happy with that. The other side of the thing that we look for in a feature is obviously then, is it succeeding in its goals? This is going to be the more subjective one, because everyone has their opinion on what the goal should be, and how would you evaluate success. This one's going to take longer for us to come to conclusions on. Like right now, we're seeing structures being reinforced. Their defenders are winning some, attackers are winning some. Stuff is changing hands. New names are cropping up that weren't there before. So, from a very kind of, we're 1 week and 1.5 weeks in, everything we'd expect to see is working and then doing what we want it to do. You ask me the same question in a month or 2 months, then who knows?
Okay.
As a follow-up question to that, are you charting...
I should clarify, I'm a programmer on Team 5.0. We're a gameplay team. If you want to get sort of the design opinion on things, then obviously Fozzie and the rest of the guys will be able to give you their opinion on design stuff a little more. But anyway, that's just the...
And what's Fozzie's cell phone number?
Well, the follow-up question to that is, if you guys have granular data at the program level regarding the types of ships that are activating Entosis modules, do you have a method of charting engagements? I mean, what we are seeing on the player side of things is that the amount of damage that is done in fights has massively decreased, as in it really seems to be hard recently, since the system has come out, to find a fight that does even 10 billion ISK worth of damage between both sides.
Sure.
Do you have a method of charting engagements, and
So
do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have a few numbers which I don't have available right now because I'm at home, but we have things like how many ships were killed whilst running an Entosis link. So that's kind of one metric that we can look at, and that would be especially useful if, say, we decided to make some changes around the interceptor. Do interceptors go up or down? Do interceptors die more often? We have metrics that would let us sort of see that kind of thing. And what was the second part of the question?
Well, the second part of the question is if you do have a method of charting the amount of battles that are taking place and the amount of damage being done on both sides, how do you feel? Are you happy with what appears from the player-based perspective that the sheer amount of damage that's being done in engagements has been cut almost in, I don't know, by 80%?
Yeah, okay. So we're seeing a lot of difference in kind of the usage of caps and supers from an offensive point of view, because obviously now they are not the optimal way of dropping on a structure and just overwhelmingly use overwhelming power to take the system out. So if you're looking at it from an ISK point of view, yes, there's going to be a lot less ISK being fielded because people don't feel they need to field that much or to put that much stuff on the line. Is it a problem? It's hard to say in a minute because the numbers we're seeing are kind of a lot noisier. It's going to take time for these to settle out, I think.
Yeah.
So from a purely numbers point of view, the data isn't telling us one thing or the other just yet.
Okay, well then I don't want to grill you about that further because if the data doesn't show anything, I would just be offering my opinion, not based on evidence. Let's go on to the next question then.
Okay.
The big question that I think after hearing all of this that a lot of us are thinking relates to Team 5.0, their future plans. What is outstanding outstanding as in remaining to be done after the implementation of Aegis that you and your team are looking at tweaking?
Right. So on kind of short scale thing, we've got a bunch of things that we kind of wanted to get in as soon as possible that we're working on at the moment, and these mostly are centered around UI work because we can make these changes kind of in isolation of any data trends that we see. So we want to make the constellation show info window a lot more useful. There's a lot more data that we could put in there, kind of who has control over the systems in this constellation, what campaigns are ongoing in the constellation, this kind of thing. So we want to do a lot more work on that. One thing we put in, I think it went to TQ on Thursday, was a stalemate indicator. So if you've got two alliances running links on a structure, there would be no visual difference from that state to when there was nobody running links on a structure. So we've kind of put out an indicator that distinguishes between progress blocked and just nobody making progress. The show info, the system info panels, so where you see the logos of the alliances, because what we're seeing is a lot of alliances don't have logos because either they don't meet the requirements or they just haven't got it through the submission process yet. So we're seeing a lot of systems with just the default, the circle of 8 stars, kind of default alliance logo. So we want to do some tweaks on there to make that a bit more useful. One thing a lot of people said is they wanted to see the name back. So give me the name of the person that owns the system. They just want to see that in the client. So we have things like that. So there's a whole kind of stack of very short-term UI things that we're going to be doing. Then in the kind of medium term, we have things like, so we talked about making per structure settings. So you have your alliance vulnerability time. If you've got kind of off time zone corps that you want to give some area of responsibility to let them look after some systems, then we've talked about making kind of a per structure. So I can put these structures to be a different time zone from the rest of the alliance. So that's the thing we want to get in. There's a few tweaks on the iHub behavior. What a lot of people, I don't need to tell you this, but what a lot of people used to do would be put multiple iHubs in a system with different upgrades, and then you could switch them in and out based on...
That's correct. We had that through most
whatever
of
was happening at the time. So, obviously now we have one iHub per system, and upgrades are permanent. So you don't have that ability to dynamically tune that. There's a few different ways we can look at this. One of which is kind of something we're talking about later on a bit more, which is the work on the structures and the citadels. In the FanFest presentation, they did a lot of explaining about making structures more like ships when it comes to fitting. So an iHub would be an obvious candidate if we wanted to make a structure that you could fit things to and unfit things from.
Gotcha.
That's a kind of a much longer timescale thing, because the first structures using the new Citadel system haven't even sort of made it to TQ yet. So,
well, do you think we'll probably see those about the same time then?
I know what the kind of the first pass of structures they want to do is. This wouldn't come in that first pass, I don't think. But yeah, there's not a lot of detail I can kind of give on that one right now.
Well, you did say you knew what the first pass was going to be. Could you maybe tell us about when you think that pass is going to come, when the first pass of the Citadels might be implemented?
That would be on Team Game of Thrones, and it's not fair of me to preemptively announce stuff on there.
I had to ask. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the questions that we're getting repeatedly asked in chat while we're going through this does relate to actually the next question we had written down, which is one of the things we're seeing in FozzieSov is that capitals, unless you want to shoot a moon with a dreadnought, are basically useless. That's essentially the consensus of the player base as a whole. Whether it's fair or unfair, it is what it is. There's been discussions from CCP about a capital rebalance that is on a different team than yours. Is there anything that you can tell us about when we might see some communication, some discussion, some anything from CCP regarding capital ships as they are today?
It's probably going to be similar to my previous answer. We are kind of working with Team Pirate Unicorns, which are like I think the team that's at CCP Rise and Karka and a bunch of those folks are on. There are sort of things we're working on, but nothing really concrete to announce on that. Other than, yes, we are very much aware of this.
Well, that's a good step.
When we talked about not wanting to force the meta of the Entosis link, I think that basically cap ships were the only ones that had a kind of a ship role that deliberately forced it one way or the other. Everything else was just based purely on fitting.
Okay.
So that has kind of overly made capitals less optimal, I'm going to say, for this. But yeah, I can't really say much more on that, other than we're going to try and do something.
Fair enough. One other, actually, one more question regarding potential future tweaks. Are there any plans or discussions around changing the number of command nodes which spawn? Because a lot of the feedback that we're getting is when we go into the cosmic whack-a-mole phase of dealing with the command nodes, particularly in systems that are undefended. It's spawning 5 and then another 5 is something that a lot of players are unhappy with. Could you tell us about anything regarding future plans or feelings from CCP on that?
Okay, so just so that everyone knows where what the numbers are. When a structure ends its reinforcement time and the command node phase starts, we instantly spawn the first 5 nodes. You need 10 to win uncontested. As soon as a node is captured, another one will spawn a minute later in another system, and then there's an ongoing chance of extra nodes being added kind of over time. So it takes maybe a couple of hours, I think, to hit the limit of 20 nodes if nobody captures any. So a single event will have 20 nodes across the constellation. So all of those numbers are easily changeable. We are looking at a current time. Let me have a look on this. So a current kind of command node event takes about 6 hours on average from start to finish.
Is that based on data?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing.
So currently, that's a very interesting point for everyone to get. So currently, in AegisSov, a command node event, which we call colloquially Cosmic Whack-A-Mole, takes 6 hours from start to finish on average.
That's what we're seeing the mean value of, yes.
Wow.
That's a pretty long fight. I mean,
I hope that your opinion of that is that is bad, because that's bad. Wow. I didn't think we'd get that data. That's interesting. Okay.
And again, this is all data that you could put, if you were just crunching the numbers and kind of pulling it from the API, you could figure this yourselves. So that's why I'm not too worried about sharing it directly.
And is that 6 hours while being contested, or is that just uncontested 6 hours?
That's essentially from the time the very first node spawns to the time the one team wins 100%.
I got nothing, and in fact, instead of just having dead air where I'm sitting here stunned, I'm going to go ahead and ask a follow-up question, which is talking about API data. Are there any plans to make it, because we can see ADMs, but we can't actually see indexes in API. So I have an ADM number, but I don't know where to tell my guys to go war crabbing.
Yeah. We've talked backwards and forwards about exposing the individual numbers. The reason we didn't build that straight in is just because of the way that those numbers internally are represented in the database. It just added some extra complications that we didn't really have time to solve. One of the kind of follow-up features that we want to do, hopefully fairly soon, is kind of putting more fine grain on what indexes go into counting into the ADM, and what can you do to make them go up or down. So if we were to do that, we would have to re-engineer a lot of the back end about how the indexes are currently tracked and updated, at which point we would then put a better API system in to expose that. So it's half technical. It was more difficult to do than when we had time available, and it's half because it might be work that we would end up replacing.
Okay, interesting. We're going to move on to a different set of questions now, which are sort of questions regarding the design logic, which some of these sort of dovetail together. And one of the first ones that we've been getting from a lot of people is, what was the intention? And I know that, first of all, just as a caveat, we know that you are a programmer and you are not one of the game designers, but you are part of the team, and thus we are assuming that you're aware of the designer's intent. What was the intention behind keeping the attacker of a system anonymous? As in, when somebody starts hacking something, you don't know who it is, you don't know who's attacking you, it's just up in the air.
Sure. So half of it was just a technical reason on the way that the capture system works. Unlike damage, where kind of damage is an event, you do 1,000 hit points, we know that you damaged this structure by this amount, and then we can build notifications from that. The Entosis link is more of a state, so it's being captured by an alliance. If there's 10 people from the alliance capturing, if there's 10 people from 10 different alliances capturing, it's still being captured or not. It doesn't really care about who on an individual is doing that. So based on that, we then sort of went, well, do we need to report this? And at the time, our thinking has been that unless we have a good need to, we probably won't. So that's not to say we can't be convinced that we should do this, but at the moment, we don't think we don't see the benefit in it. I mean, why would you? Let me sort of send this back. Why would you want this, and what would you do with it?
Well, the answer to that question is that the player base has been used to knowing who is attacking a tower because of the POS system. we get a notification. So the question was, why was there a choice to not add that?
Well,
Okay, so it's like that's how it's always been. Should we keep that more than
If your stuff, okay, well that's a fair point, but my opinions are pretty much irrelevant to this. I don't want to talk about what I think. Our viewers want to hear what you think because they can hear what I think at any time. 'Cause I run my-
well, tactically, it comes in where if you know who's doing the reinforcing, you can kind of gauge what response you need to respond with, and that's the biggest thing.
Is your tower getting hit by an interceptor or a dreadnought? You know, that's a decision point from a command structure as to what sort of continuum of force, as it were, you apply to respond.
Sure. Yeah, and a bit of this comes down to if you're active in your space, then you'll probably know that before they even turn the link on. So we sort of wanted to try to encourage that a little more than just relying on, oh, a ping's gone off, guys, we best log in and form up, instead of actually being there and doing stuff beforehand.
Well, that's a fair point. We are beginning to run out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and ask another couple of questions. One of them relates to NPC stations. Now, one of the things that we are seeing in the field is that with the anomaly buff, some areas of SOV are now a little bit more worth having. But with a an Aegis SOV whack-a-mole contest taking 6 hours on average to deal with, is CCP concerned that NPC stations, which have no risk of being captured, and their modules, like their station services, cannot be disabled, are you concerned that this might be a more attractive place to live than in player-owned outposts?
I think there's always going to be a need for space or structures that are essentially 100% secure, that you know that they're going to be there tomorrow. Whether we have the right number of them is up for debate. I know that the guys working on the Citadel system are questioning a lot of the assumptions of should NPC stations be indestructible. The big worry is obviously people who have stuff in these stations haven't logged in. If we tell them all your stuff is gone, then would they ever come back? A lot of people, when we first started talking about changes to the SOV system, especially the Providence guys were talking about this a lot, was why should we live there when we could just go back to NPC null, low, high, wherever? Because, and you yourself have talked about, when the day comes and Providence burns, nothing will be left.
Well, if it takes us 6 hours to complete a single system, there might be a lot of Providence left. What about, let's just move away from destroying the stations. What are your feelings about the idea of just a simple tweak, I think, that would fix the balance between NPC stations and SOV stations, is how about simply making the NPC station services hackable?
Yes, that is an idea we've seen occasionally in the past, and increasingly with the kind of the exposure, I think, of when we first made structures the only target for links, and then people realised, there's gameplay here that's not just one guy comes along, shoots it, another guy comes along, repairs it. We can probably roll those out to NPC stations if we wanted to. This might touch on what the Citadel changes are also going to come along, because they're working on ideas of, well, what if we just let everything get blown up? NPC stations as well as Playroom. We don't know what decisions are going to be made on that just yet. But if we do, then what mechanisms do we put in place to give people a chance to get loot, either their own loot or from the loot that's been destroyed? And so, yeah, tying that back into NPC stations as maybe as a medium-term kind of level of task, then we could make some of those disruptable. I'm not sure how many ones that are different to the current services that we have. We've got fitting, labs, clones, repair, and two more. I can't remember.
I mean, the bare minimum, being able to keep people from death cloning back into a NPC station, or keep them from being able to refit their ships is kind of a big thing.
It's an interesting combination from a strategic perspective, where you have the problem of NPC staging that is near upgradable SOV null, where you can basically have the benefits of somebody else upgrading the SOV live in NPC SOV, and particularly with interceptors having interdiction immunity. So I mean, you could either make the NPC services hackable, so you could temporarily disable them, maybe make them have a shorter timer such that they're only disabled for an hour before they automatically turn back on. That at least gives SOV alliances a strategic gameplay aspect to punish or lock down or otherwise temporarily disable something. That or just the interceptor immunity, which I think is stupid and a lot of people are now getting sick of, to warp disruption. But that's a whole other thing. We have time, I think, for one last question here with you, which is, we've been getting a lot of important questions from people who are more industrial minded. One of the best things about Aegis SOV is that it allows people who are formerly Care Bears to contribute to the overall strategic health of the people who are living in their SOV. So that's great, and one of the best things about the system. The problem that we've been encountering is that the industrial index is tied purely to mining. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with like researching, reaction farms, all of the other, and running industry jobs. There's a lot more to industrial activity than just mining.
Yep.
Could maybe tell us if you have any thoughts about expanding the utility or tweaking the industry index?
Yeah, I mean, this it kind of comes back to what I was saying a little while ago about the index levels. There's various things we want to try to let you have different avenues to either different avenues to increase the same index, or just different indexes that you can increase in parallel. One of the key things is we don't want a way to let you turn ISK into a multiplayer. So there should be, if we just did manufacturing jobs, then you just bring in a bunch of stuff, you manufacture it, you refine it, you manufacture, refine it. Essentially, you're just having a ISK.
So it'd be key to just like POS activity or the presence of towers and things like that, potentially, or structures.
I think what he means, he doesn't want someone to go and make 2 billion rounds of ammo, just raise their index and just have it sit there.
Yeah, because there's no real way to kind of interrupt that. It doesn't lead to much interesting gameplay, other than one guy has to be the guy that builds and reprocesses shit all day long. So the balance there is going to be, can we find things to have people doing stuff in space that leads to increasing the multiplier, but also lets other people interrupt that activity. And if we can get a nice way of doing that, then yes, definitely we want to widen the scope that you have for buffing up your levels, and also for stopping other people buffing theirs up and ultimately decaying them.
Interesting. Okay. Laz, do we have anything else, or are we out of time? Need to do some giveaways.
We're hitting that point, so we're going to go ahead and roll into our giveaways. I've already opened it up, and people started spamming chat. So if you haven't entered the giveaway, go ahead and do it. We're going to be giving away 2 pirate rookie ship codes, thanks to CCP for giving us those to give out to you guys. And then we're going to be giving out a Eve True Stories signed by TheMittani himself.
Oh my!
Wow!
I hope I could get one of those.
Yeah, me too.
An autographed copy. And we also have, I think, an Eve Source book, which is a very nice hardcover.
Oh, actually,
book, yeah.
We aren't going to be giving out the Eve Source book. We're going to be giving away a TheMittani.com Imperium T-shirt.
Oh, okay.
And then if we have time, we'll do the source book. We got to hurry things along.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, doing the first roll. First roll for the Frig. It's going to go to Reloop. Make sure you message Channel Man. Thank you so much for following the chat. Then we're going to go straight into the next one. And Mythic Myth for the Pirate Frig codes.
Mythic Myth wins everything all the time. This is totally rigged. Like, I've seen that guy win like 5 giveaways already.
Always rigged, never not rigged.
All right, let's. Are we gonna do? Is the True Stories gonna be a subscriber thing?
No, True Stories we're gonna give to everyone, and then we'll give. We'll give the.
I'm not special enough to get.
I think all of your people should have a chance to win a sign.
That is true.
An object held by his glorious. Oh my god.
I should get an actual goatee hair or something, and put it in the front cover and tape it there.
Oh,
that's a great idea. The Center for Disease Control will show up at my door and be like, "Why are you spreading this contagion?"
All right. So, the person who won the signed True Stories by TheMittani is Jack Udibu. Congratulations, buddy. You need to message the chat with, or not chat, message the channel with your real life shipping address, name, etc. for us to send you a physical package. And now all of our subs need to spam the chat sub hype. Also,
all the sub hype all the time.
And we'll be giving away a Imperium t-shirt, black. You can get it from zazzle.com/TheMittani, which I will link in chat for you guys again.
I can't wait to actually get a TMC coffee mug or a Black Eagle Imperium coffee mug, because then I can be really even more nerdy than before. It should be awesome.
I think you need a beard t-shirt, personally.
I could use a beard t-shirt, because there's no way in hell that I just turned 37 the other day, and I still can't grow anything at all besides this little whatever the hell it is.
Do you not have a t-shirt with your face on it yet?
No, Stauffer, of course, has the lock on.
Yeah. Okay, that's an exclusive one.
That shirt's amazing.
That's a great shirt. I love that.
All right, so doing that roll for our subs, which, by the way, Fido, thank you so much for the new sub, and as well as Elise Randolph subbing to us. Doing that roll now. Beth Hale, you've won the shirt. You've won the TheMittani.com Imperium t-shirt. Just go ahead and message the channel your shipping information, and we'll get that sent to you. Guys, with that, we're going to be closing things out. Thank you so much, Masterplan, for coming on and letting us grill you and ask you questions about the new AegisSov system.
Absolutely.
Extremely
My pleasure.
informative.
I hope people find it interesting.
It was really awesome.
Very interesting, absolutely.
And then coming up next is we have the Undead Zone, so we'll see you for that.